Hi everyone! So the next assignment that I'm going to focus on for real world math is how to calculate your grade. This is something that I told you I was going to do at the end of the year, and one of you reminded me of that in your Google Classroom comments, so that's what I'm going to work on. But before I give you notes, I just want to add a bit of a disclaimer on this, and that is that some college professors may not give you all the information you need regarding your grade to be able to calculate it yourself. So that's going to be part of the notes that I give you right now, is what information you'll actually need regarding your grade in order to be able to calculate it properly. So let's check it out. All right, everyone. So before you can calculate your grade, there is some information that you're going to need to have. Now, like I said in the beginning of the video, there may be some professors that don't provide that information for your grades, but if they do provide it, they would usually put it on the syllabus, which you'll get at the beginning of the semester. So what we have is different categories and different weights. So let's say this professor has just tests, quizzes, and homework. Tests are worth 75% of your grade, quizzes are worth 20% of your grade, and homework is worth 5% of your grade. Now, what you'll need before you can calculate anything is you're going to need your grade on every single quiz, your grade on every single test, your grade on the homework. So let's just put some grades in here. So individual grades, let's say you take 3 tests, and that may include the final, it may not. This is really just going to be the teacher's preference, how they do the grades. So you may even have a separate category for a final exam, but let's say you took 3 tests. And let's say your first test was a 70%, second one was 82, third one was 65. We're just going to write this down now, and we'll take that information and calculate some stuff with it in a moment. So let's say you took 2 quizzes. And the first quiz was a 60%, the second quiz was a 72%. Now homework, usually you don't get your homework grade written as a percent, so let's just have a hypothetical here. Let's say over the course of the semester, each homework assignment was worth a couple points, and the homework ended up being out of 25 points, okay? So again, this is a hypothetical. So let's say you have 25 points for homework, and you completed 20 of those 25. You can't use that number. Instead, what you need to do is you need to calculate the percent. So you need your percent in every single category. So let's say you're 20 out of 25 points on the homework. That's going to get you at 80% for your homework average. Okay, and we'll just assume that was throughout the course of the entire semester. Now, how are we going to calculate this? So in order to calculate your actual grade, what you want to do is you want to start off with the weights. So test, quiz, homework. Okay, now these are all percents. We're going to turn all of our percents, and actually let me just do that so it doesn't confuse anyone. Remember, that's the score that we got from your hypothetical 20 out of 25 points on the homework. So we've got our tests, our quizzes, our homework. I'm going to change all of those into decimals so that I can do some math with them. So my tests are worth 75%, so 0.75, quizzes 20, so 0.20, and then homework, be careful, it's not 0.5, that would suggest that it's 50%. It's going to be 0.05. Okay, now what you do to calculate the whole grade is you take the category weight, that percent, and you multiply it by the average of each category, which means we've got to do one additional piece of math before we can get this this final grade. Let me move this a little bit, so move this up. Okay, so how do I get my test average? Well, I know I got a 70, an 82, and a 65. So we're going to take all 3 of those, we're going to add them together, and that gives us 72.33. Now, obviously, if you keep the decimals, you're going to have a more accurate answer. When I do this, I always just round up to a whole number, so I'm going to get 72. And this part, we don't even have to change it into a decimal. So we're just going to kind of think about it as 72 out of 100 points, but we don't have to change that into a decimal. We can just keep the 72 there. You can change it into a decimal. I'm not going to go into that. It's just easier to keep this as a whole number after you get your average percent. So now let's take care of that for the quizzes. You've got a 60 and a 72. we're gonna divide that by 2. And let's see, I forgot to calculate that one before. So divided by 2, so that's gonna be an even 66. So I'm just gonna put the 66 in there. And then the 0.05, well, we already calculated that. We already knew that we got 20 out of 25 points on the homework, so that's gonna be 80. You take all of this and put that all in the calculator at once. So I'm gonna do that. Let me move this up. So I've got 0.75 times 72 plus 0.20 times 66 plus 0.05 times 80. And that is a 71.2 in the class. Now I know what some of you are thinking, but how do I figure out what I need to get on my final exam to pass the class? So I'm gonna do that next. We're gonna use these same weights. Okay, the next thing that I'm gonna show you isn't really fancy math. It's actually just how I used to do this when I was in college. And that is a whole bunch of guessing and checking and hypothetical situations. So let me start off. I'm gonna use the same numbers that we used before. So this is your class. Now we're gonna make an assumption. We're gonna add in, we're gonna say that you took 3 tests and you actually still need to take a final exam. And your final exam is gonna go into the test category. So here's what I used to do. I always wanted to know what would happen if I did terribly on the final exam. So all that's going to be affected by your final is your test category. So all of this other stuff is going to stay the same. What's going to change is your test average based on what you get on that final exam. So what I used to do is I would first start with the bad news. I would ask myself, what would happen if I didn't show up to the final and I got a 0? So let's just remind ourselves, going into your final, you have a 71.2%. All right, now let's say you get a 0 on the final. 70 plus 82 plus 65 plus your 0 on the final, and now we're dividing it by 4 because you took 4 tests now. So we're gonna get a new test average, and your new test average drops quite a bit, which would be expected, and that's gonna be 54.25. Now, when you wanna see the big picture and see how it's going to affect your overall grade, you're gonna plug everything back in the calculator. So we get 0.75 times 54.25 plus 0.20 times 66 plus 0.05 times 80. Definitely double check, make sure that you entered everything in correctly, and that's a massive bummer. If you don't show up for this final, you're gonna end up with an F in the class. Now, I'm not going to go through all the hypothetical situations, but you guys can see that you can get really creative with this. So something that I used to do is I would check at every grade. So I would try like a 0, then I would try a 60, then I would go higher and higher and higher with the number. And like I said, it's not any fancy math, it's really just guessing and checking, but the key is knowing this formula. And remember, the way the formula works is you've got your weight of each category times your average score in that category. So one last thing that I want to show you guys is, like I said, I started kind of like with what would be bad news, me getting a 0 on the final. Something I used to also check, because I tried to be optimistic, is I would also check and see, well, what can happen if I get 100%? Because oftentimes you guys will ask me questions like, if I do really well on the test, can my grade go up to a B? If I do really well on this, can my grade become a whatever? Well, the best way to check that is to assume the best and ask yourself, what's gonna happen to my grade if I get 100%? So if you're this person, you're going into the final thinking, is it even possible for me to get a B? So let's find out if they can get a B. So what changes? Only that test average is gonna change. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna take 70 plus 82 plus 65, and this person just studied like crazy and ended up getting 100% on the final. We're gonna recalculate that. We're gonna divide it by 4, and that brought their test average up to a 79.25. So what's gonna happen? I'm gonna rewrite the equation, but now I'm gonna have 79.25 in there. So 0.75, my test average is now 79.25, plus 0.20 times 66 plus 0.05 times 80. Now I'm going to tell you right now, because of my experience with this, I'm looking at this and I don't think it's possible for this person to get a B. And let me show you why. Oftentimes you guys will ask me again, you'll ask me questions about your grade and you'll ask me, why didn't my grade go up even though I did so well? This is a perfect representation of why your grade sometimes doesn't go up as high as you want it to. Notice, this person doesn't have a single average that is over 80, which means there's no way their grade is going to be over 80. But let's plug it in, let's just see. Times 66 plus 0.05 times 80. And they now have a 76.64%. So sometimes when I show students this, it's almost depressing because you look at that and you think, are you kidding me? They got 100% on the final. How come their grade didn't go up any higher? But the reason I like to show you guys is it really helps you prioritize your time when you're in college. Because you know in this class, if you ace the test, you still can't get higher than a 76%. So when you're studying, you may want to prioritize the study for another class a little bit more where you have a chance of bumping that grade up. Now again, I'm not going to do any other examples on this, but you can spend a lot of time calculating your grade and figuring out, well, what if I get a B? Something that I used to do if I had a borderline grade is I would change this number over and over and over again, and I would see what the smallest number or smallest final exam score I had to get to keep it still above 71. So that's something else that you can do. Again, not super fancy math. There's a lot of guessing and checking, but I really hope that this helps some of you guys when you go into college to figure out how well you have to do on a final exam. As always, let me know if you have any questions, and complete the attached worksheet on your own piece of paper and submit it via Google Classroom. I'll talk to you guys later.